There's a method that costs $3 and removes rust permanently, not slowing it down, not delaying it, but eliminating it completely at the molecular level while transforming the exposed metal into a protective barrier that corrosion cannot penetrate again. Imagine taking 1 bucket of salt water, 1 9-volt battery, and 1 simple steel rod sitting unused in your garage, and within 60 minutes, every orange flaking surface across your tools, vehicle frame, axe head, cast iron pan, and brake components turns back into clean, bare metal. This is not theory or a new invention, but a process used decades ago in high-stakes environments where failure was not an option. Warships, historical artifacts, and essential equipment all relied on this exact approach because it worked faster, cheaper, and more effectively than anything sold today. Now think about how many rusted objects are sitting around you right now, slowly degrading, waiting to be replaced, or treated again and again. This method changes that entire cycle. Instead of spending money repeatedly on temporary fixes, you use a one-time process that fundamentally transforms the metal surface itself. The result is not a coating that wears off, but a conversion that becomes part of the material. The surface becomes resistant to future corrosion in a way that most modern products only claim to achieve. The scale of the problem explains why the solution is rarely discussed openly. The auto parts aftermarket alone generates over $300 billion every year, and nearly 30% of that, around $90 billion, comes directly from rust-related damage. Brake lines, exhaust systems, frames, suspension components, all of it feeds an industry built on the idea that rust is unavoidable and permanent. That number exists because rust is treated as an ongoing issue rather than a solvable one. The moment rust becomes something you can eliminate permanently with a $3 setup, that entire revenue stream begins to collapse. A 9-volt battery costs about $1. Salt costs less than $1 for multiple uses. The remaining materials are items most people already have. Compare that to products sold at $15, $30, or even hundreds of dollars for professional treatments. The difference is not in effectiveness, but in business models. Rust must remain a recurring problem for those products to exist. A permanent solution that anyone can use at home does not fit into that system. This process works through electrochemical transformation rather than abrasion or chemical coating. Rust, which is iron oxide, is not simply removed but converted. The electrical current flowing through the salt water pulls oxygen away from the iron oxide, reversing the corrosion process. At the same time, a stable compound called magnetite forms on the surface. Unlike rust, magnetite does not flake or spread. It bonds to the metal and creates a protective layer that resists further oxidation. This is why the treatment is permanent. You're not covering the damage, you're undoing it and replacing it with a stable structure. Setting it up requires only a few basic steps. A plastic container is filled with water, and salt or washing soda is added to create an electrolyte solution. A steel rod is placed in the water as a sacrificial anode, and the rusted object is submerged without touching it. The battery is connected so that the positive terminal goes to the steel rod, and the negative terminal goes to the rusted object. Once connected, the reaction begins immediately. Tiny bubbles form on the surface, and the rust starts breaking down and dispersing into the solution. As time passes, the water darkens, and the object gradually shifts from orange and brown corrosion to a dark gray or black surface. This color change indicates the formation of magnetite. Depending on the severity of the rust, the process can take anywhere from 30 minutes to several hours. Heavily corroded items may require longer treatment, but the result remains consistent. The rust disappears, and the metal is restored. Once removed from the solution, the object is rinsed and lightly scrubbed to remove any remaining residue. What remains is a clean, stable surface ready for finishing. Applying a protective layer such as oil, wax, or coating immediately after treatment ensures maximum durability. This step enhances the already stable magnetite layer, locking in the results for long-term protection. What makes this method remarkable is not just its effectiveness, but its history. The principles behind it were discovered over 2 centuries ago when early experiments with electricity revealed how ions move through solutions. Over time, industries learned to use electrolysis for coating metals, but reversing the process revealed something even more powerful. Instead of adding material, it could restore it. By the late 19th century, engineers had already observed that reversing electrical polarity could remove rust completely. This knowledge was documented and tested in real-world applications, proving its reliability. During wartime, when equipment had to be maintained under extreme conditions, this method became invaluable. It required minimal resources, worked quickly, and preserved the integrity of the metal. Despite its proven effectiveness, it gradually disappeared from mainstream use. Not because it failed, but because it could not be monetized in the same way as chemical treatments and coatings. Industries shifted toward products that required repeated purchases, creating a cycle of dependency. Meanwhile, this simple, permanent solution remained largely hidden from everyday users. The contrast is striking. On one side, An industry worth hundreds of billions depends on rust being an unsolved problem. On the other, a method costing $3 can eliminate it permanently. The gap between those two realities explains why most people have never heard of it. The science itself is straightforward. Electricity drives a reaction that separates oxygen from iron oxide, effectively reversing corrosion. At the same time, it stabilizes the surface with a compound that resists further damage. There's no grinding, no harsh chemicals, and no loss of original material. The process preserves the metal while restoring its strength and appearance. This approach also scales easily. Small tools can be treated in a simple bucket, while larger components can be handled using bigger containers and higher voltage sources. The principle remains the same regardless of size. The only difference is the time required for the reaction to complete. Safety is important, but manageable. The process produces small amounts of hydrogen gas, so it should be done in a ventilated area. Using the correct materials ensures that no harmful byproducts are created. With basic precautions, it is safe for home use and requires no specialized training. The long-term results are what truly set this method apart. Once treated, the metal resists rust far more effectively than untreated surfaces. The magnetite layer acts as a barrier, preventing moisture and oxygen from causing further damage. When combined with a protective coating, the durability increases even more. Examples of real-world use show just how effective it can be. Severely rusted components exposed to harsh environments have been restored and remained rust-free for years after treatment. The difference between treated and untreated sections becomes obvious over time, with untreated areas quickly showing new corrosion while treated surfaces remain stable. This is not a temporary fix or a surface-level improvement. It is a fundamental change in how rust is handled. Instead of fighting it repeatedly, you eliminate it at its source. The process transforms the problem into a one-time task, rather than an ongoing expense. For decades, this knowledge has existed in technical documents, restoration practices, and specialized fields. It has been used quietly by those who understand its value while remaining largely unknown to the general public. The reasons are not technical, but economic. A solution that costs $3 and works permanently does not align with a system built on continuous consumption. Now the information is accessible. Anyone with basic materials can apply it and see the results firsthand. The barrier is no longer cost or complexity, but awareness. Once understood, it changes the way rust is viewed entirely. Every rusted tool, every corroded frame, every neglected piece of metal represents an opportunity to apply this method and restore it completely. The process is simple, the materials are cheap, and the outcome is permanent. What was once considered damage becomes reversible, and what was once treated as inevitable becomes avoidable. The distance between rust and clean metal is no longer measured in expensive products or repeated treatments. It is measured in a bucket, a battery, and a short amount of time. The transformation happens at a level deeper than the surface, altering the structure of the material itself. This is why the method stands out. It does not mask the problem or delay it, it solves it. And once you see the results, it becomes clear that rust does not have to be a cycle. It can be an endpoint reached quickly, cheaply, and permanently with the right approach.